And he is deployed. Hello. We're supposed to be live, and we're just chatting away here.
Chatting away.
About my punk brother, who I love, and who made me think that he was wounded in battle, but was actually in a training exercise. Hi, what Red Couch Theology podcast listeners. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, friends.
And whether you're joining us live or joining us after the fact, at some later date, we're grateful that you're here.
Yeah.
We have a lot of ground to cover.
We really do. I don't know how I actually don't know how we're going to do it all.
This podcast that was sort of designed to field questions from the congregation. Now that we got 3 questions in 1 week, I don't know how to run the podcast.
Can we claim back the 20 minutes that we didn't use last week?
Maybe.
Like, I mean, we were like,
I have to pick my daughter at 1 o'clock. So that's my cutoff point, as I have to make it.
I've got a meeting at 12:30. So we got
perfect.
I got a point there.
All right. So how about this? I think that the questions are big enough and time consuming enough in order for us to address them fully.
Yeah.
That we should spend the bulk of our time on that. So if you're okay, would you give us a quick overview of the sermon? Yeah. Just remind us of where we were at, if you remember.
Yeah, I do. I got it. So the overview is, in the week before, Jesus is at a wedding in the north of the country that is now called Israel. He turns water into wine. It feels like a surprising start to a ministry, one that he didn't even seem to expect. And then he comes down to Jerusalem to a start that would have made sense as a start to a ministry, where he walks into the temple, the center of the sacred world for those people 2,000 years ago, and drives everybody out who's selling things. Now the marketplace element to the temple was a necessary feature. It wasn't a flaw, but where it was located to Jesus seems to have been a flaw. It was located in the area for worship for the Gentiles. Anyone who came from a different country was allowed into this certain space. And so he kind of clears that out, and then gets into this really interesting dialogue with a group just labeled as the Jews, perhaps the Pharisees, or maybe probably the Pharisees. And in the midst of that debate, then says, knock down this temple and I will rebuild it again in 3 days. And John just leaves us with this parting thing of like, but the temple he was talking about was his body. So my thesis on this passage is that actually Jesus is doing something really interesting with sacred space. It's like the beginning of a longer journey. So for a whole bunch of people, sacred space had been a distinct part of life. There was the sacred things you went to, sacred place, sacred man, maybe a sacred book, all those different things. And you would go and you go there to be with God, and then you go back to the normal world. In this passage, Jesus' actions actually, like, they do something with sacred space. They actually maybe expand it a little bit, or make sure that people have access to God of all sorts of different places. Mm-hmm. But then he kind of like points to a day coming where sacred space will be no more. In actual fact, he's going to do this multiple times in the next few chapters. Like, he'll do it in a conversation with a Samaritan woman. He'll start to nudge on this end to the sacred, and this idea that all things now are sacred, which for us is actually really important. Yeah. Because if we live in this old narrative of sacred space and then the common world, well, the things that really matter that you can do are the sacred place things. It really matters if you're a priest or a pastor, or you work in a church, or you run a faith-based nonprofit or something. Those are the only kind of roles that really matter. And everyone else is just making the world go round. But I think actually Jesus moves us to a place where you can do anything, almost. I mean, there seems like there's some exceptions. Yeah. But there's almost nothing that you can't do really, really well and bring some of the sacred life to the world around you. So when Jesus says, or Paul says about us now, we're now the temple. There's no physical temple anymore. God has made us his temple. Well, think about that as this beautiful idea. The temple no longer waits for people to come to it. The temple actually goes out to other people who've never thought about coming to it. You know, we get to bring the sacred world wherever we go. And that seems to be where this story is going.
Yeah. And I think I probably even showed little chunks of this on the show in some past episode. I'm trying to see if this is the one. Oops. No thanks. Shut this off. Let's see if I can just fast forward the section. I loved this image.
How are you going to describe it to people in the...
I'm going to describe it this way. So there's this Bible Project video that talks about heaven and earth, but the part that like sticks with me most, and the premise of the video is to describe theologically heaven space versus earth space, and what the Bible treats them as these two different environments, and that God's preference in the Garden of Eden was that both spaces were overlapped.
Yeah.
Heaven space and earth space are together. So picture a Venn diagram. The two circles of the Venn diagram are overlapped on top of each other. For those who are watching the video, you can see here like this space. Well, then when sin enters the world, the Venn diagram like breaks apart. Heaven space and earth space are sort of separated and broken apart.
The overlap disappears.
It disappears. But then the cross or Jesus shows up on the scene. And it's like when he says, like the language of let your kingdom come, or the kingdom of heaven is at hand. He's basically saying heaven space is back, baby. You know, and I am heaven space. That's the teachings of Jesus in the Gospels, is that he is the heaven space. Yeah. And so, there's these little moments in this video where you see these pictures of Jesus walking into the non-heaven space and bringing light, bringing the combination. So now in the video, you have the Venn diagram, but then you have like these little outposts of the crossover of the Venn diagram that starts to show up inside the dark spaces. Yeah. And that's what the invitation of Jesus is for the church. He's like, I want you to bring heaven space to earth space. You're now like an ambassador of heaven space.
Which is also what will happen when we get to this week in John 3:16.
Exactly.
Where Nicodemus comes in the dark, both physically and spiritually, looking for light. And then John, as he unpacks what Jesus says, starts to say, you know, like the true light was in the world, just as he said in the prologue.
Totally.
Yeah.
So anyway, when you were talking about that, this is the image I picture, this specific scene where there's these little outposts of heaven and earth combined.
Yeah.
But inside of the Venn diagram where they don't belong.
Yes.
That's what the current church era is Jesus kind of like gradually bringing heaven to earth more and more and more.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, I love it. Beautiful stuff. So that's where we went. And then the invite is, you know, I got to pray for someone and got to talk about how like there's almost like anything that you can do and enter into.
Yeah. So you prayed for a chemistry teacher.
Yeah.
You know, and we sort of prayed a prayer of like commission of ministry, bring heaven space to the... And
we could have actually done that for everybody in the building. Like everybody in the building gets to enter into that. That's not like
that's the invitation.
One person. That's
Love
all
it.
of us.
Awesome. All right. So there's the overview from the sermon. The questions we received are sort of outside of that space predominantly, but that's fine. That's what this show was supposed to be. So we were going to try and figure out how to make the show what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
So the first question I'll get is related to the book of John specifically. We had someone who wrote in and said, Alex has mentioned a couple different times that chronology is not as important to ancient authors, and especially maybe to John.
Well,
maybe.
Well, I would say certainly the first part. The second part of that is really up for debate. Like there's some writers that would say, no, John is the one that actually
is the most chronological. Interesting.
It's the others that don't care about chronology.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you go to almost any church who talks about Jesus' ministry, they'll throw out like Jesus taught for 3 years. Well, there's only one place they could get that from. like John is the only author that suggests it was anything close to 3 years. If you were to listen to Matthew, Mark, or Luke, you'd guess like 9 months. So there's some argument that John is the one who's like Mr. Chronology.
Okay.
But
and then the other ones are not as obsessed with it.
So specifically this comes into this passage around the clearing of the temple.
Okay. Which let me the question asks specifically about that. So I think John uses the purging of the temple for a different purpose than the synoptic gospels, correct?
Yeah.
So he has the story right after the wedding. I was wondering if the anointing so then it jumps to another story and asks if there's a purpose behind a different scenario. So go ahead and address what's the purpose of having the clearing of the temple in proximity to the, or why is it different? What's the agenda John has that's different than the synoptics?
So again, couple of options. One option, let's say there's 3 options. One option is there were just 2 temple clearings.
Yes.
Like it happened twice.
Yep.
That doesn't fix the problem of why
the other
Matthew, Mark, and Luke are so short.
Yeah.
Like why they only have Jesus in Jerusalem once for a Passover when John says he was at 3. So that like problem doesn't go away by saying, that there were 2 temple clearings. But it does just explain why they're slightly different, or why one's really early in his ministry and one's really late in his ministry.
Yeah.
One really precedes death and resurrection. One is like, this thing's just getting started. John seems to use it as this kind of like, the start of the ministry, actually the public start after this surprising, like out of nowhere start back at Cana that nobody really sees.
So the water into wine. Then this one. Yeah.
Only his disciples really get to see that, plus a couple of servants that some people suggest become disciples. So there's that piece. But then this is like the public, here I am. And this is like a prophetic statement that says, no, I'm going to make this again a space for people to come and worship.
If you wanted to know when my ministry started, how about when I chased everyone out of the temple?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas Matthew, Mark, and Luke, like Mark specifically uses it as this moment that talks about what's happening in Israel. Like there's this theological concept around Mark called the Markan sandwich.
Yeah. Like
he almost like pauses an event and says, oh, now watch this scene. And then he hits play again and you get the rest of it. So in Mark, Jesus is walking to the temple and he sees a fig tree and there's no figs on it. And so he curses it. And then
he clears the temple, then he comes back to the fig tree.
And sees it sees it withered.
Yeah.
But in the other stories, the story just keeps going about the fig tree. He curses it, and then they're like, oh, the next day he walked past and it was now withered. So Mark seems to be saying, when you think about the fig tree, think about the temple ministry and everything's going on there.
Yeah.
This fig tree didn't produce fruit and now it's dead. This temple ministry didn't produce fruit and now it's dying. So like he's got this agenda there as well, which seems to be in line with Matthew and Luke. So broadly, I'm a bit of a John chronology guy.
Really?
I actually think, like just because of the 3 years, and it seems to be like so rooted in our understanding of what Jesus did. I'm like, if they've got this, if John's got this strong sense of, no, it was 3 years. It was much longer than you think. And we talk about that all the time. Like we talk all the time, like Jesus, like started ministry at 30, died at 33. That language is in church language all over the place. So I'm a bit of a fan of his chronology.
So you think that it was 2 cleansings?
No, I think it was 1. And I think
that it happened
Matthew,
early.
Mark, and Luke just, they truncate Jesus' ministry. So there's just 1 Galilee scene and 1 Jerusalem scene.
And John spreads it out a little bit
John
further.
just has more, like either more knowledge or wants to give more of the long picture.
The in-between spaces.
I find it easier to believe that 3 writers decided we're going to make this like real clear, like hometown ministry, goes to Jerusalem, dies, resurrection, rather than that John decided, I'm just going to add a couple of years in.
Because like so he has some more specific stories he wants to tell.
That could be just my Western mind, in that I find it easier to explain someone shortening a story to a level that we can grasp than someone just making up a couple of extra years. I think as a Westerner, I find it easier.
Or relocating events for a theological reason, which is maybe more where I had sort of leaned with the book of John.
But relocating the temple is one thing. But like Jesus either did 3 years of ministry or he didn't. So to add an extra 3 years of ministry seems like a weird move.
Yeah.
But again, maybe a Western.
The reason I've always kind of treated the cleansing of the temple in the book of John as just a out of chronology choice, or a two cleansing choice, to highlight that there was actually two cleansing, is actually, maybe this isn't fair, but it's actually just because if you're looking for an impetus for why in the world did the religious leaders kill him, the aggression of Jesus, like in the book of John, Jesus moves in pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
And in all the other, in the synoptics, you get the impression that Jesus is very, very cautious early on.
Yeah.
Basically, so he can finish doing his teaching ministry before he gets murdered.
Yeah. That's fair.
And I feel like even in the book of Mark, that's almost a thesis statement of why he's so cryptic. Part of the reason he's so cryptic with parables is because he's trying not to prematurely get murdered. And then it feels like he comes in and cleanses the temple. Thousands of, people hear about this. It's so, he comes in swinging for the fences.
Yeah.
Why would the religious leaders even entertain conversation with him after this?
Yeah, well,
unless it's out of order.
This is one of the problems with the John temple cleansing.
Yeah.
Like the temple cleansing in the synoptics, where Jesus comes in with a whole crowd of people on the entrance, the triumphant entry, that Jesus seems to have the people collateral to cleanse the temple.
Yeah.
And to get away with it. Talking in human terms.
Yep.
The John that kind of walks in with no reputation, the Jesus that walks in John with no reputation.
Yep.
And maybe 5 or 6 followers. That seems harder to say.
It's more just shocking, and they don't know what to do with it
but
yet.
But then again, we're talking in very human terms, because this is Jesus. This isn't...
Yeah.
This isn't me.
Okay, so that actually wasn't even the full question. So before we continue, let me actually highlight what some of the other questions are going to be, in case you want to try and skip ahead to a future question that more interests you. We have a question about a comment you made about male masculinity, toxic masculinity, wanting some definitions. So we'll address that. Hopefully in this episode. And then we also had a question about some of your comments you made at the beginning of the service in regards to the murder of Charlie Kirk and the shooting and the immigrant who was murdered on the subway, and some of your comments there, and just feeling like they're grieving still and wanting to just for us to linger a little bit more on that topic. So those are the topics. Oh, and the rest of this question, which is related to, is it the woman at the well? I think that asking about a chronology question in John. So if you're interested, those are the topics we're going to try and cover for the rest of the episode. So if those interest, hang with us or fast forward to one of those sections. So the rest of this question, weird chronology, first premise. I was wondering if the anointing of Jesus, so the woman who anoints his feet with oil is another example of the author using chronology for a different purpose. Some people believe that Jesus purged the temple twice. I just wondered how many times Jesus was anointed, who did it, and where was the perfume poured. Is the anointing of Jesus similar to the purging of the temple, where the author has a different purpose? And if so, what's the purpose?
Yeah.
Because I guess his observation is he gave us a chart here. I don't know if I can pull the chart up full screen, but it's a chart that compares the synoptics to John.
Yeah.
And I think the anointing text is similar to the cleansing. It's relocated pretty significantly.
Yeah. And I think even the woman that relocates is more clearly defined in John.
As for burial?
As like it's a person in John, right? Is it John that names a person? Someone just says a woman, and then someone says Mary, who Jesus cast 7 demons out.
Yeah.
So there's more specifics.
I can't remember.
So I think one of the things it's always important to remember when dealing with authors from this period. So
yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
John names her.
Yeah. So none of the original manuscripts, or the closest to original, the oldest manuscripts we have, attach a name to any of these gospels. It's really early church legend. But none of them in the beginning say, "Hi, I'm John, I'm writing. Hi, I'm Matthew, I'm writing. Hi, I'm Mark. Hi, I'm Luke." Like this is like early 2nd century story that seems to get passed down from a guy called Eusebius, who was a disciple of John. And so Irenaeus that has this idea says, that Matthew wrote, and then Mark, a disciple of Peter, wrote, and then Luke wrote, and then John wrote. So he names the four authors,
order, and
names the people.
Oh, the people who wrote.
And the only one he really gives order to is later John wrote. He doesn't speak into Matthew, Mark, or Luke, or who comes first. Like most people think Mark came first around 60 AD, but some people think Matthew was written in Hebrew first, and that we just don't have it. So some people think Matthew came first because it's got a very Jewish element to it, or maybe he wrote in Aramaic. So the attachment of those names is like early history that was given to us from people that were right there at the scene.
And strong evidence, or like not strong evidence, but it's educated inference as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but the thing to remember there is that if those things are right, if those names are right, only 2 of them were there on the scene with Jesus. Only Matthew and John were actually present. Luke and Mark are working from a source. So these stories are passed down orally and maybe from first person. I mean, that would make sense. Mark and Peter are very close. It would make sense that Peter passes his story to Mark.
Yeah, a lot of theologians believe.
Luke travels with Paul and has access to all sorts of people as he travels around. It makes a lot of sense that Luke has some very direct sources and writes like he's done a lot of research. So those are all really credible sources. This is the beautiful thing about being a follower of Jesus. Like we have the best sources out of any ancient manuscript. I think 25,000 sources for Jesus and what he did. I think the life of Caesar, a generation before, I think there's 4.
Yeah.
So I mean, it blows almost everything else out the water for its like tracking historically.
So all this talk of the synoptics versus John and all this stuff, like if that gives you a little bit of biblical anxiety, out of the entire Bible, the most anchored of all the books is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John textually. Yes. The most copies, the most textual evidence, the most clarity, the most anchored then. And then from there, those quote other books and so forth. Like you start to rebuild this pretty strong canon process based upon these. But these 4 books, which is the ones praised by God's mercy and his wisdom and by the Spirit of God, the ones that give us the closest access to the person of Jesus are the most textually weighty.
And I would even extend Luke to Luke Acts as well. I mean, Acts is almost
it is one
as
text.
You're going. It's like we were doing this. We're doing this right now. It's like step by step. So they're incredible sources, but we know ourselves. We can put 4 people at the scene of a big event, and one person will say, "Oh, I really noticed this thing that happened," and another person will say, "Well, I was the other side of the room. I saw this thing." And
Totally.
another person will say, well, I kind of was in the middle of and I saw this thing. And they'll give 4 different accounts. So to me, it's no problem to think that John saw a temple scene and just took something different from it. It's no problem for me to think that Matthew, Mark, and Luke name a woman who came and anointed Jesus' feet. And John's like, no, I know her. Like, she passed away, but I'm going to put a name in so people know who did this.
Yeah.
And they're all comfortable using these stories to show something about Jesus. That's not bad history. That's not bad recording. That's storytelling.
Yeah.
It helps us get into what it means, not just what happened.
And actually, textual critics would say that it actually lends further weight to the credibility of these sources, because if they'd been heavily modified by later people, you should definitely harmonize them.
Yeah.
And you should make sure that they all sound similar and they all have the same agenda.
Which is actually what's happened with the Quran.
Yes,
like they've agreed an official copy and everything else gets destroyed, so you narrow it down to one.
It makes it easier to you just eliminate the ones that are problematic.
Yeah.
And that our account doesn't do that. And they're only problematic because there's humans' observance and perspective involved. And so as followers of Jesus and as Bible Christians, for lack of a better term, that's actually a feature, not a bug.
Totally.
Yeah.
And the fact that we have whole copies of the New Testament that go back to the early 4th century is incredible for a culture that didn't pass around. No one carried a Bible around.
Yeah.
Like they do today. It's an oral culture still. Most people don't own any books.
Yeah.
Only rich people have books. The fact that we have that you can go to the British Museum and see the Codex Sinaiticus and actually see how early this thing is just a gift.
Yeah.
So I think.
So then getting back to the anointing thing, do you think that John has a theological agenda for sort of treating her?
I think he's still actually telling the same story.
Yeah.
About sacred and,
versus secular.
Yeah.
And sorry. So I think there's your answer. Yes, he has a purpose for why he tells it the way he tells it versus the synoptics. But interestingly, for the person who wrote in this question, I think you actually already know that because the research that you sent me in your question is so thorough that you probably could be on the show and answer it more thoroughly than we could off the top of our head. I think you already found your own answer. You have a chart diagramming the different agendas of each gospel about this particular story. And I think you could have answered this question for us on the show. So thanks for sending it in.
And so let me give a really quick story about how that seems to work in the synoptic gospels. Matthew and Luke both have a story about Jesus sailing across the lake with his disciples. When they get to the other side, they are approached by, according to Matthew, 2 madmen who live in the tombs.
Yeah.
And according to Luke, to Mark, 1 madman who lives in the tombs.
Yeah.
And Jesus heals in Matthew the 2 madmen, and in Mark the 1 madman. Now, for us, it might be necessary to say, because we value that historical accuracy so much, it might be easier to say, well, it must have happened twice. But the pattern and the point in the story are very similar. And so, again, this is a beautiful element to how the Bible collaborates itself while also not being exactly the same. Matthew, if we are comfortable with those 4 authors, which I'm totally comfortable with, Matthew was there and remembers these 2 people that were healed. Mark gets his story from Peter. And perhaps Peter doesn't remember or doesn't mention that there's 2, but he just talks about how he remembers this one guy that came back.
Yeah.
Like that this one guy that comes back and falls at Jesus' feet and says, let me follow you wherever you go.
Yeah.
It's the same story, but two people that remember different details about it.
Yeah, the most important part for that particular story for him was that this guy came back, and that's why he's telling the story.
And actually, the thing that the story has in common is Jesus' ability to heal even those that are most broken.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for sending that question in, and then we'll jump into this second question. So, Pastor Alex, during the sermon this past Sunday, you referred to toxic modern masculinity, approximately 20 minutes into the sermon. Please expound as to what you meant by this, as it has become this increasingly commonplace language in our society to reference, but often without context or explanation as to what qualifies as quote unquote toxic or masculine. Yeah, I look forward to hearing you on this matter.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it was probably a term that's gotten thrown around too much to have used without some explanation.
Yeah.
So I would say it in this sense. There has been, I think, a definition of masculinity around Jesus specifically that began with some preachers like Mark Driscoll, who was at the time over in Seattle.
Yeah. That
would say things like, like, I can't respect a Jesus whose ass I can kick. Excuse the language, I'm quoting directly.
Yes.
Which to me over-highlighted the need for Jesus to be in modern a man's man, a macho man.
Yeah.
And actually turned the value on Jesus into physical strength. And then you couple that with like a modern like breed of masculinity. People like Andrew Tate, who's I think now maybe back in Britain, has been in Romania. Who brings this culture of like actually being a man means you take what you want.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter about how people feel, you're a conqueror. Like he actually says things like, if you've only slept with one woman in your life, you're doing it wrong. You're doing masculinity wrong. So like there's these elements of what it is to be considered a man that sneak into society. Like you're measured by your body count, by how many people you can beat up, by whether you're the strongest guy in the room and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So I was trying to emphasize the fact that Jesus brings this energy to the temple scene.
Yeah.
That undoubtedly, if you've ever tried to move a cow anywhere, like my aunt was a cattle farmer. So these cows like that come around you and stuff that you're trying to get through, they are serious animals. Like, and these are
when they decide not to move, they don't move.
They don't move anywhere. Yeah. Like you have to exert some serious energy to get a cow moving. Once you get them all moving, like you
nothing can't stops them.
Yeah, but they, so Jesus clearly walks into this scene with some like determination, some
strength, and
But that doesn't turn him into a guy that's only determined by physical strength. And this is like people like J.R.R. Tolkien wrestled with this in some of his narratives.
Yeah.
There's actually two brothers in the Lord of the Rings series. One who is described as loving war for its own sake and only been interested in feat of arms. And another who loves poetry and song and music, but also is super gifted as a warrior. But he's like a throwback to another year that only loved war when it was necessary, not for its own sake.
Yeah.
So like there's this almost like there's this masculinity, I think that I think is good and healthy. Like there is masculine and feminine, and those things are okay. It's not clearly defined lines, but that ability to defend and fight and have energy for a purpose, not loving it for its own sake.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I grew up with guys who loved it for its own sake, who like were super proud of like, fights they got into, and, they'd come home with stories after a Friday night of, man, like this guy was on the door of a club and I just hit him before he even knew what happened, and left him lying on the floor. Like They were very proud of those stories.
Yeah. So I don't know why this may be a ridiculous illustration, but I think about Karate Kid.
Yeah.
Think about the two senseis.
Yeah, totally.
So the one sensei is this like macho.
John Kreese.
Yeah, he's just like, he projects power and strength, and he's a big talker, and he's physically bigger and looks more muscular. And then you have the other sensei, Mr. Miyagi, who seems so calm, collected, but then destroys him in the moment. Yeah. So Jesus shows up a little bit more like Mr. Miyagi.
Well, what's John Kreese's language as well? Like, we do not teach mercy here.
Yeah.
Like, and Mr. Miyagi actually says it to him at the end, almost as like as a joke. Like, you know, we do not train to be. He remembers all the lines.
Totally. So Mr. Miyagi is actually more powerful, both emotionally, psychologically, and skill.
Yeah.
But doesn't project that. And so maybe the toxic one is the one who projects it, but then actually is maybe psychologically and emotionally more immature. That might be quote unquote the toxic version of it. And then the more like true biblical masculinity actually is this like capacity to be physically strong, but the wisdom and the grace and poise to actually defend the weak with that strength.
So if you carry the like what I maybe mistakenly labeled toxic masculinity, you can do what Jesus is able to do as a carpenter. Like when you think about what it is as a carpenter to work and to hammer a nail into something, you know the energy different things take. But you could never lie on a cross and take the nails with that level of toxic masculinity. Like, because it's all about you really, and it's all about your sense of pride and who you are. And so Jesus is able to exert this energy into a scene, and yet he's also able to stay passive as nails are hammered into his wrists.
Yeah, without fighting back.
Humanity, without fighting back. Like that's not...
Now that's masculine.
Yeah. That's true masculinity.
Yeah, which is not at all trying to feminize a man at all. Actually, it's like beautiful. Yeah. It's a beautiful, like tempered strength that's powerful.